Austin Winsberg, creator of Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist. I first want to thank you for having Mary Steenburgen and Bernadette Peters sing Rich Girl, because that was incredible. So can you talk about that sequence first?
Sure. I mean, I knew right away when we had Bernadette Peters on last season that I wanted Bernadette Peters back this season. She's such a legend in the musical theater world, and just I've been a fan of hers for a really long time. So it was a thrill to have her the first time. But also my mom, after my father passed away, this show's very personal, but my mom has this friend, Sandy, who her husband had passed away a few years before my dad. And she became kind of the entree for my mom back into life and back into the dating world. And they kind of became these partners in crime. And it was a little bit like Samantha and on Sex and the City. And so I just always wanted to have that Sandra character. And I thought Bernadette could be that character to kind of bring some fun and life back into Maggie's life. And so anytime that we could put them together again, and also have some fun songs for Bernadette. That just felt like a fun song for the two of them. And then getting to be there on the day and watching the two of them shoot it together, watching these pros do it was really awesome. And
that was amazing. And they made it rain. Like, it was awesome.
Yes. And giving Bernadette a Sia song before that. You know, I kind of wanted to do sort of unexpected fun songs for Bernadette, not the typical things that you would expect.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys, you have these elaborate choreographed numbers with a lot of people in close proximity. So what was it like for your show to come back for season 2 in the middle of a pandemic?
There was a lot of questions in the beginning about how can we do these big dance numbers? How can we do all these things where people are so intimate and close to each other? So much of dance is about partnership and touching and holding. And we benefited a little bit by shooting the show in Vancouver, where the case numbers were much, much lower earlier in the year. We still had to go through all these COVID protocols in the beginning, the whole time. But once we got that system in place and the dancers adjusted to rehearsing with their surgical masks on, and everybody kind of got accustomed to this being the new normal, it sort of just became a way we go about doing things. And it didn't limit us that much in terms of what we were able to do musically. Obviously, you could only have a certain number of people in a room, and the mask would be on right before the take and come on right after the take. But I remember the very first big number we did was Hello, Dolly. And there was a lot of questions between Mandy Moore and I, our choreographer and producer, and my partner really on the show, about could we do a number on this scale? How do we do this during COVID? And once we had gone through all the systems and we shot it on the day, and there was so much joy, and it was like 30, 40 people doing this big Broadway number in Spark Point together, and that we actually accomplished it, I think everybody hugged, or maybe we weren't allowed to hug, just elbow bump, but fake hugged. And Mandy and I looked at each other and we both started crying. And it was, I think, both like a release of like so long we had been in our corners and away from people, and to experience that joy with people again felt so amazing. But also it gave us the confidence that once we had the right systems in place and the bubbles and the testing, that we would be able to do big numbers and still be able to accomplish a lot of what we wanted to accomplish. It was really like a relief and a feeling like, okay, we can do this.
Mm-hmm. Well, the show is very fun and sweet, but it's also rooted in loss. Like you said, it's a very personal story for you, and there's a lot of grief and sadness. And Zoey's therapist, pointed that out. He said, this is about loss. And with all the loss people have had in the past year, we've all had, what do you think the show resonates now more with viewers? And was that something you guys kept in mind as you were writing season 2?
It certainly started to happen, I felt, kind of by the end of season 1. And with the loss of the father at season 1, there was such an outpouring of people that would text me or instant message me, or that people were experiencing loss. And it was happening, and it was certainly not designed that way. I was just telling a personal story about what had happened to me. But I think it did start to become a little bit more of a collective or universal idea that people are going through loss, that people are going through struggle. And when I was thinking about season 2, the first thing that I wanted season 2 to be about was recovery. And how do we recover in the face of tragedy, in the face of difficult things happening to us? And that was certainly reflective of what was going on at the time, and wanting to bring some hope and understanding that grief is a process, but that there can be some form of redemption and recovery and some light on the other side of it. So it was kind of by design that it tied into what was going on in the world. And the other piece that was by design was I really wanted to make sure that Zoey's was a non-COVID world, because I didn't want it to exist in a world with masks and in a world where people were thinking about COVID. I still wanted to have that musical wish fulfillment aspect of it as well. So I do think in certain ways it has paralleled what's been going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't write in COVID, but you did have an episode this season dealing with racism in the workplace. So can you talk about developing that episode?
Yeah, I mean, that actually, it sort of happened in episodes 5 and 6 and has carried through in ways through the rest of the season too. But as the writers' room got together on Zoom and started talking about the season, it was when all the Black Lives Matter protests were happening and the George Floyd stuff was happening. And there was a lot of feeling in the room that, wouldn't it be great if we could somehow touch this or talk about it in some way? And also when we started reading about a lot of racism in tech in Silicon Valley at the same time, and we felt like there was actually an organic way to bring it into our story by having racism exist at SparkPoint, and by having it affect Simon and Mo and characters in our world. And so we just decided also, if there was a way that we could do it, maybe there's a way that we could do it musically and make it feel different than how other shows might tackle it. And certainly there are a lot of songs over the years that have dealt with protests, that have dealt with deep emotions, and being able to tap into that kind of urgency and that kind of emotion felt like something we could do on our show that other shows maybe couldn't do. And so then at that point, it was just a question of how do we tell it in a way where we don't make Zoey the white savior, and how do we be as authentic to the characters and the actors' own experiences as possible. And I really brought John Clarence Stewart and Alex Newell into the conversation. Mandy brought Luther Brown in to co-choreograph it with her. We had a great writer on our staff, Zora Bikangaga, write it. So everything about that show, especially episode 6, was how do we be authentic and true to the experience and tell it in a musical Zoey's kind of way. And I just feel like if we have the opportunity on network television to take those kind of big swings and talk about things that are important and happening in the world and shine our specific light onto it, I feel like in a way that is our opportunity and our responsibility.
Yeah, right. Well, Zoey and Max got together very briefly at the beginning of the season, and then she's not ready for a relationship. She's still grieving her dad, and now she's with Simon, and I think it's very delicate, how shows like handle love triangles. Now Rose is in the picture, so it's a quadrangle, and like will they, won't they couples. So how did you approach her romantic entanglements this season?
I don't think I realized that love triangles were such a dicey proposition. I thought that people liked them.
Teams.
I mean, I thought the teams keep people invested, but I have read online and stuff that people have had a lot of strong feelings about these love triangles this season, which I just guess I wasn't aware that. I just thought it was a way to keep the romantic entanglements alive. I mean, I thought the thing that bumped people about it was that the kind of the indecision of it. And so what we tried to do very early on in the season was, okay, she's going to make a decision. She's going to try to go for Max, and then realize, because it's so early on in her grieving, that she's not ready for that yet. And, when my wife and I were dating, we took a pause before we got married. And when we were on that pause, we explored other things. And I really felt like it was important, because of the chemistry and the dynamic that we had set up between Zoey and Simon, that she should explore that in some way. So even though we had set up this love triangle, I did feel like it was important for her to make concrete choices rather than just vacillating back and forth, will they or won't they? She made a choice for Max. She made a choice for Simon. And we're going to see by the end of the season how that all really plays out. But no, I've definitely learned through that process that people have very strong feelings about love triangles.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do like about the so-called love triangle is like the guys aren't enemies, or they don't start hating each other because they both have dated the same girl. Like they're still friends and respectful. So was that a conscious decision as well? 100%.
And John Clarence Stewart and Skylar Astin were really vocal about that they didn't want to make it these two guys fighting over her. One's a good guy, one's a bad guy, that she's the prize. They really wanted to make it feel like they're respectful, and that this is Zoey's decision, that this is up to Zoey to not villainize these two guys or to put them in competition with each other in a real way. And I think it only, I really liked that, because I felt like It deepened their relationship. It made them more three-dimensional. I like making Max and Simon friends. And so it also gives you an interesting thing for rootability there too, because it's like, because they're not in separate corners, it kind of makes you root for both guys in different ways. And it also shows their shared compassion for Zoey and their humanity too, I think.
Mm-hmm. What can you tease about the season finale? You just mentioned something there before, but what else can you say?
Well, the season finale, first of all, definitely ties up some threads that we have been that we set up throughout the whole season. There are plenty of things that get answered, and then there is a big cliffhanger at the end that could potentially change everything going into season 3.
Can you tease a song at all?
We have 8 songs, I believe, in the season finale from some big artists. We have a Beatles song. We have a Elton John song. And for the first time on the show, I've been trying to do this for 2 years. We have a Taylor Swift song. And so that was very exciting for us. That was like, for me, the big get. I was like, if I could get Taylor Swift for the season finale, then I feel like my life would be complete.
Well, I can't wait to see that. Austin, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank
and
you.
You get to stay on because everyone's coming back.
Very exciting.